The Alpha King found an albino omega and 6 pups freezing and swore to end who did this. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, back to our main characters. Ethan Thornridge, the Alpha King, stood at the edge of the vast, snowy woods, his eyes scanning the horizon. His breath came out in thick clouds in the bitter cold, but it was nothing compared to the cold that seemed to settle deep into his bones. For the last few days, his pack had been under attack, and the relentless storm had made it impossible to track down the enemy. Yet, something gnawed at him. He could feel it deep within his soul, a pull, a need to protect, to find something, or perhaps someone. The wind howled, pushing snowflakes around him, and in that moment, he heard it, the faintest cry. It was soft but desperate, a sound that made his instincts flare. He followed the sound through the forest, each step crunching in the deep snow. His sharp eyes caught sight of something small and fragile in the distance, barely visible through the blinding snow. As he drew closer, his heart skipped a beat. There, huddled together, were 6 tiny wolf pups, shivering uncontrollably. But it wasn't just the pups that stopped him in his tracks. In the midst of them, lying on her side, was a young woman, her pale skin nearly blending with the snow around her. Her hair, silvery white and tangled, framed a face that looked far too delicate to survive the freezing temperatures. She was an albino, her skin almost ghostly under the dim light, her eyes closed as though she had given up. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, the need to protect this fragile creature overwhelming him. He knelt beside her, gently brushing the snow away from her face. Her lips were blue, her breath shallow. His first instinct was to pick her up and carry her back to the safety of his castle, but as his eyes moved to the pups, a sense of responsibility tugged at him. These creatures were in danger as much as she was. He couldn't leave them behind. As he carefully wrapped her in his cloak, his mind raced. Who could have done this to her? Why were they left here to die? He swore to himself, a fierce vow that whoever was responsible would pay dearly for what they had done. The Alpha King was known for his ruthlessness in battle, but this was personal. He had to protect her. She was his responsibility now. With great care, he lifted her into his arms and started back toward the pack's stronghold. The storm raged on, but Ethan's mind was already set. No one would hurt her again. No one would harm his future mate. Ian's castle loomed in the distance as Ethan Thornridge carefully carried Lily in his arms. The cold wind cut through his cloak, but the warmth from her fragile body provided him with an unusual sense of purpose. The snow around him was thick, but he moved through it effortlessly, his steps sure and determined. His mind raced with questions he couldn't answer. Who was she? Why was she out here, in the freezing cold, with 6 pups on the brink of death? He couldn't fathom the cruelty that would drive someone to leave her in such a state. As he reached the castle gates, the guards immediately rushed forward to open them, their eyes wide in shock at the sight of their alpha carrying the unconscious woman. Get her to the infirmary immediately, Ethan ordered, his voice cold with authority. They nodded quickly, and within moments, Lily was carefully placed on a soft bed in the castle's infirmary. Ethan lingered for a moment, watching as the healers began to work. His thoughts, however, were far from the scene before him. His gaze wandered to the 6 pups, still huddled together in the corner of the room, their fur matted with blood and dirt. They were the first thing he had noticed when he found her. A deep sense of responsibility washed over him. He would protect them, just as he would protect her. His thoughts were interrupted when one of the healers approached him, a concerned look on her face. She's alive, my lord, but weak. The cold has done much damage to her body, and she's suffering from severe exhaustion. It will take time for her to recover. Ethan nodded solemnly, his jaw clenched. He would wait. He would do whatever it took to make sure she was safe. He had sworn an oath when he found her, and he would not break it. As he turned to leave the room, he caught sight of the pups once more. They had not left her side, even now. Their tiny bodies trembled, but their loyalty was clear. He had no idea who these pups belonged to, but they were as much a part of her as she was a part of them. Ethan left the infirmary and walked through the halls of the castle, his thoughts heavy. He had lived a long life, filled with battles, political intrigues, and broken alliances, but nothing had ever felt as personal as this. He had found her, and now, she was his responsibility, his mate. The realization struck him like a thunderclap, and for the first time in years, he felt a strange sense of hope, mixed with a deep, consuming need to protect her. But who was she? How had she come to be in such a situation? Ethan knew that answers would come in time, but for now, his duty was clear. He would keep her safe, and he would find out the truth, no matter what it took. Hours later, Lily began to stir. Her eyelids fluttered, and she let out a soft groan, her body shifting beneath the blankets. Ethan was by her side instantly, his hand gently brushing a strand of her pale hair away from her face. Her eyes opened slowly, blinking against the dim light of the room. When her gaze met his, something inside him tightened. He could feel the bond between them, as if it had always been there, waiting to be discovered. She stared at him for a moment, her expression confused, before she whispered in a raspy voice, "Who are you?" Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He had known from the moment he found her that she was his mate, but hearing her say those words made the reality of it feel even more intense. "I am Ethan Thornridge, Alpha King of the Northern Territories," he said softly, his voice steady. "And you are safe now." Lily's brow furrowed as if trying to process his words. But she didn't speak. Ethan could see the uncertainty in her eyes, but he knew she was too weak to ask the questions she no doubt had. He reached for her hand, his thumb gently brushing over her pale skin. "You've been through a lot," he continued, his voice warm and reassuring. "But you're safe here, with me. No one will hurt you again." Lily's eyes softened slightly, and she nodded, though she still looked exhausted. Ethan could see the trust beginning to form in her gaze, but there was still something else. Something she hadn't said yet. He didn't press her for answers. He had all the time in the world. As long as she was safe, he could wait. The next few days passed slowly. Ethan kept a close eye on Lily as she recovered, and he spent time with the pups, making sure they were well cared for. They had become his responsibility now, just as much as she had. There was something about them that made him feel even more protective. They were innocent, just like Lily, and he would make sure no harm came to them. He had sworn that to himself when he found her, and he would keep his promise. When Lily was finally well enough to sit up, she looked at him with wide eyes. "I don't know what happened," she said quietly. "I don't remember how I ended up there, or why they left me." Ethan looked at her, his expression softening. "I don't know either," he said, his voice low. "But I do know that you're safe now, and I will make sure you stay safe." He leaned forward, his eyes locking with hers. "Whoever did this to you, I will make them pay." Lily's eyes widened in shock, but then she gave a small nod, as if she was beginning to believe him. Ethan knew they had a long road ahead of them, but as long as they were together, they would face whatever came their way. No one would ever hurt her again. Ian stood by the fireplace in the grand hall, watching the flickering flames cast long shadows against the stone walls. His mind was occupied with thoughts of Lily, the albino omega he had found, and the 6 pups that had been clinging to her. It had been a few days since she had regained consciousness, and, though her strength had returned, there was something else lingering in her eyes. A deep sadness, a hidden pain that she had not yet shared with him. Ethan couldn't help but feel the weight of his duty as her protector, but he also felt a pull, a bond he could not explain. He had never expected this, never anticipated that the day he found her would mark the beginning of something so much bigger than either of them. She was not just any omega. She was his mate, and that knowledge settled in his chest like a promise he had made long before their paths had crossed. Yet, despite the growing connection between them, there was still so much he didn't understand. Why had she been abandoned in the freezing cold? Who had left her there to die? And what of the pups? They were as much a mystery as she was. With a sigh, Ethan turned from the fire and made his way toward her chamber. The guards at the door stepped aside, giving him a respectful nod as he entered. Inside, Lily was sitting by the window, her pale hands resting gently on her lap. Her gaze was distant, focused on something far beyond the castle walls. The pups were nestled on a large blanket beside her, asleep and safe. Ethan approached quietly, his heart aching at the sight of her. She was beautiful, even in her quiet sorrow. "Lily," he said softly, his voice low and comforting. She turned toward him, her silver eyes meeting his with an unreadable expression. "Ethan," she replied, her voice hoarse from disuse. There was a moment of silence between them, a space where words seemed unnecessary. "How are you feeling?" he asked, stepping closer. She looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing her words. "Better," she said finally. "But I still don't understand why I'm here. Why did you save me?" Ethan knelt beside her, taking her hand in his. Her skin was still cold, but it was no longer the ice-cold chill of death. "Because I'm the Alpha King," he said, his voice firm. "And it's my duty to protect those who cannot protect themselves. You are my mate, and I swore to protect you." Lily looked down at their joined hands, her brow furrowed in confusion. "Your mate?" she whispered. Ethan nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "Yes, I know it's hard to believe, but I felt it the moment I found you. You are mine, just as I am yours." A tremor ran through her body, and she pulled her hand away, wrapping her arms around herself. "I don't know if I can trust that," she said softly. "I don't know if I can trust anyone anymore." Ethan's heart clenched at the pain in her voice. He could see the hurt that ran deep within her, the scars that no one could see. "You don't have to trust me all at once," he said, his voice gentle. "But I will earn your trust, I swear it. And I will make sure that no one ever harms you again." She met his gaze then, her eyes searching his face as if looking for something. "And the pups?" she asked quietly. "They will be protected, just as you are," Ethan said, his tone unwavering. "They are part of you, and I will keep them safe as well." Lily nodded slowly, her expression softening. She seemed to be processing his words, the weight of them settling over her like a blanket. Ethan stood up, offering her his hand. "Come with me. I want to show you something." She hesitated for a moment, but then took his hand, allowing him to help her to her feet. He led her through the corridors of the castle, past the grand dining hall and the staircases that wound up to the higher chambers. They reached the balcony overlooking the grounds, where the snow still lay thick and heavy on the earth. The moonlight bathed the scene in a soft glow, casting long shadows over the icy landscape. "This is my kingdom," Ethan said, his voice low as he looked out over the vast expanse. "But it's nothing without those I protect. Without you." Lily stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the night before them. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "I don't know what's happening to me. I never wanted this. I never wanted to be a burden." Ethan turned to her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "You're not a burden, Lily. You never will be. You are my queen now, and nothing will change that. We will figure this out together." She looked at him then, her eyes filled with uncertainty, but also a glimmer of something else. Hope. It was faint, but it was there. Ethan knew that their journey was just beginning. There would be challenges ahead, obstacles that would test their bond. But one thing was certain. They were meant to be together. And nothing, not even the past, would tear them apart. Ethan stood at the balcony, gazing out over the frozen landscape that stretched far beyond the castle walls. The moonlight bathed the snow in a soft, ethereal glow, and for a moment, he allowed himself to simply breathe in the quiet of the night. It had been a long few days since he had found Lily and the pups, and though the weight of responsibility pressed on him, there was something undeniably soothing about the peace of the moment. Lily stood beside him, her presence like a soft warmth in the cold. He could feel the pull of the bond between them, growing stronger with each passing hour. It was a connection that was difficult to explain, but one that he couldn't deny. She was his mate, and he would protect her, no matter what. "How are you feeling?" he asked quietly, turning toward her. Lily had been quiet ever since their walk to the balcony, and Ethan could sense the weight of her thoughts. She glanced at him, her silver eyes soft but distant. "I'm better," she replied, her voice low. "But there's still so much I don't understand." "Why me? Why did this happen?" Ethan took a step closer to her, his hand brushing against hers. The cold night air seemed to disappear as he stood beside her, his warmth enveloping her. "I don't have all the answers," he said softly, "but I do know that you're here now. You're safe, and you don't have to carry the weight of this alone." Lily looked up at him, her gaze searching his face. "But I don't know anything about you, about this world, about being your mate." Ethan smiled gently, his heart swelling with affection for the woman standing before him. "You don't have to know everything right now," he said. "We'll take it one step at a time. I'll show you this world, and we'll figure this out together. You're not just my mate by fate, Lily. You're my equal, My partner. Her eyes softened at his words, and for the first time, he saw a flicker of something like hope in her gaze. I never thought I could have something like this, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I've spent so much time hiding, so much time alone. I never thought anyone would want me, let alone a king. Ethan's heart ached for her, but he remained strong. You are everything I've ever wanted, he said, his voice firm with conviction. And you deserve all the love and respect I can give. You are not a burden, Lily. You are my strength, my mate. Lily blinked, her breath catching slightly, and then she nodded, as if finally allowing herself to believe his words. I believe you, she whispered. The connection between them felt stronger now, a quiet understanding settling between them like a promise. Ethan didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. He would never let her go. Come, he said softly, offering his hand. Let me show you something. He led her inside, down the hall to a large chamber with a grand fireplace. The warmth of the fire immediately enveloped them, and Lily's shoulders seemed to relax as she took in the cozy surroundings. This is where we'll begin, Ethan said, guiding her to a chair near the fire. You'll learn everything about me, about this kingdom, and about your place here. And I will learn everything about you. Lily hesitated for a moment, but then she took a seat, her eyes studying him with curiosity. What's it like? She asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Being a king? Ethan's gaze softened as he thought about her question. It's not as glamorous as it seems, he said, sitting beside her. There's always something. A responsibility to the pack, to the land, to the people. But it's also about honor. And protecting those you love. Lily nodded slowly, her gaze drifting to the fire. I think I understand, she said softly. And what about you, Ethan? She asked, her voice tentative. What do you want? Ethan's heart skipped a beat at the question, and for a moment, he simply looked at her, as if trying to find the right words. I want you, he said finally, his voice quiet but full of certainty. I want us. Together. I want to build something that's ours. Lily's eyes met his, and this time, there was no hesitation, no doubt. She smiled, a small, fragile smile, but one that held so much promise. Then I'll follow you, she whispered, her words soft but powerful. Wherever we go, whatever happens. Ethan reached for her hand, his grip strong and reassuring. We'll go together, he said, his voice steady. And no matter what, I'll always be by your side. As the fire crackled between them, the two of them sat in the quiet of the night, the bond between them growing ever stronger. For the first time, they both allowed themselves to believe in the future. A future where they could finally be together, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. Ethan stood beside the large window, staring out at the endless expanse of snow that blanketed the kingdom. The moonlight cast a soft glow on the landscape, but his mind was elsewhere. It had been weeks since Lily had come into his life, and in that time, he had come to understand that nothing would ever be the same again. He had sworn to protect her, and yet, the questions that swirled in his mind only grew with each passing day. Who had left her out there, abandoned in the cold, to die? And why had she been alone? He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story than she had told him. But for now, he would wait. He had promised her safety, and he would keep that promise no matter what. The door to the room creaked open, and Lily stepped inside, her figure silhouetted by the light from the hallway. Ethan turned toward her, his heart swelling at the sight of her. She had changed so much in such a short time. The fragile, broken woman he had first found was now slowly becoming stronger, more at ease in the castle. Her eyes still held the sadness of her past, but there was a new light in them, a flicker of hope. Lily, he said softly, his voice carrying a warmth he hadn't realized he was missing. She smiled at him, a small, shy smile that made his chest tighten. Ethan, she replied, her voice carrying a quiet strength. I wanted to thank you. Ethan raised an eyebrow, surprised by her words. Thank me. For everything, she said, stepping closer. For taking me in, for protecting me, for giving me a place where I can feel safe. I never thought I could have this, you know? I thought I was doomed to be alone forever. Ethan stepped forward, his heart aching at her vulnerability. You are not alone, he said firmly. You never will be. Lily's eyes softened, and she looked down at her hands, clasped tightly together in front of her. I've never been part of something like this, she whispered. I've always felt different. But here, with you, it's like I can finally breathe. Like I'm not just an outsider anymore. Ethan took her hands in his, gently pulling her closer. You are not an outsider, Lily. You are part of this pack. You are part of my world now, and nothing will ever change that. Lily's eyes met his, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. The bond between them, that invisible thread that connected their hearts, was undeniable. She was his mate, and though the path ahead was uncertain, he knew in that moment that he would never let her go. I know I'm still healing, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. But I want to try. I want to be with you, to help you, to learn what it means to be part of this life. Ethan smiled, his heart full of love for the woman standing before him. We will take it one step at a time, he said, his voice low and comforting. Together, we'll learn. And I'll be here every step of the way. Lily nodded, her eyes shining with the promise of something new, something beautiful. As they stood together, the firelight dancing around them, Ethan felt a sense of peace settle over him. The storm that had raged within him for so long seemed to have passed. For the first time in his life, he felt like he had found something worth protecting, and that something was standing right in front of him. I don't know what's out there, Lily said, her voice steady now. But I know that with you, I can face it. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Ethan's heart swelled at her words. She was stronger than she realized, and with each passing day, he saw more of the woman she was meant to be. He reached out, cupping her face in his hands. We will face it together, he said, his voice full of certainty. And no matter what, we will stand side by side. I swear it. For the first time, Lily smiled without hesitation. It was a smile that reached her eyes, one that filled Ethan's heart with hope. And in that moment, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as one. Together. The future was uncertain, but as long as they had each other, Ethan knew they could overcome anything. And that was all that mattered. Ethan woke to the sound of soft whispers, the faint rustling of the curtains as the morning light filtered through the windows of his chamber. The warmth of Lily's presence beside him was a comfort he hadn't known he needed, and yet, now that she was there, he couldn't imagine life without her. His mind had been busy, racing with the responsibilities of leadership, the growing bond between them, and the mystery of her past. But for now, in the quiet of the morning, he allowed himself a moment of peace. Lily stirred beside him, her silver eyes fluttering open. She blinked a few times as she adjusted to the soft light. Ethan's heart warmed at the sight of her, the way she seemed to breathe in the stillness of the moment. She was a woman of strength, more than she even realized, and every day, he saw a little more of her potential unfold. Good morning, Ethan said, his voice low and soothing. Lily smiled sleepily, her gaze locking with his. Good morning, she replied, her voice soft but steady. How did you sleep? He asked, moving to sit up, his hand brushing over her hair. Lily stretched slightly, her eyes catching his in a moment of quiet connection. Better, I think, she said. It's still hard, but I'm getting there. Ethan nodded, his gaze tender. You've made incredible progress in such a short time. I'm proud of you. Lily's cheeks flushed slightly, a small smile tugging at the corner of her lips. I don't feel very strong, Ethan, she said quietly. I feel like there's so much I still don't understand. Ethan reached out, cupping her face gently in his hand. You are stronger than you know, he said softly. And I'll be here to help you every step of the way. You're not alone in this. Lily's gaze softened, and for the first time in a long while she felt herself truly believe his words. It was an overwhelming feeling, one that filled her with both hope and fear. She had never allowed herself to trust anyone fully before. But Ethan was different. He was not just a king, not just a protector. He was hers, just as she was his. I want to know more about you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. What's it like, being the Alpha King? Ethan's expression shifted, his smile faltering for a brief moment as he thought about her question. It's a heavy burden, he said slowly, his voice thoughtful. But it's also an honor. Leading a pack, protecting them, ensuring their safety. It's my responsibility, and I take that very seriously. Lily listened closely, feeling the weight of his words. But it can't be easy, carrying that weight alone, she said, her voice soft but full of understanding. Ethan's eyes softened as he met her gaze. It's not easy, he admitted. But I've always believed that a leader is only as strong as the people around him. And now, I have you." Lily felt her heart skip a beat at his words. She had always felt like an outsider, someone who didn't belong. But here, with Ethan, she finally felt like she had a place, a purpose. "I don't know how I fit into all of this," she said quietly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I don't even know who I am anymore." Ethan leaned forward, his gaze intense, yet comforting. "You are my mate," he said firmly. "And that is all you need to be. You don't have to be anyone else. Just be yourself, and that's enough for me." Lily's heart swelled with emotion, and for the first time, she felt like she belonged. She wasn't just an Omega. She wasn't just a woman lost in the world. She was his, and that thought brought more peace to her than she ever thought possible. "I'll do my best, Ethan," she said, her voice filled with quiet determination. "I'll be the mate you deserve." Ethan's heart surged with pride. "You already are," he said softly, brushing his thumb over her cheek. "You're more than I could have ever dreamed of." As they sat there, in the quiet of the morning, they both knew that their journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, obstacles they would have to face together. But for the first time, they both felt ready. Together, they could face anything that came their way. And with each passing day, they would learn more about themselves, about each other, and about the future they would build side by side. Ethan stood up, offering her his hand. "Come," he said with a gentle smile. "I want to show you something." Lily took his hand, feeling the steady warmth of his touch. She was no longer the broken, abandoned woman she had been. She was his equal, his partner. And together, they would build something strong, something lasting. The future was uncertain, but as long as they had each other, Lily knew they could face whatever came next. Ethan stood in the hallway, his hand resting on the cool stone wall as he stared out the window at the kingdom he had sworn to protect. The days since Lily had entered his life felt both too short and impossibly long. They had come so far, yet there was still so much to understand, so much to learn about the bond they shared and the mysteries of her past. He had vowed to protect her, to keep her safe, but what did that truly mean? He had heard the whispers, the rumors that surrounded her, and he could feel the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders. His thoughts were interrupted when he heard soft footsteps approaching. He turned to find Lily standing at the end of the hall, her figure framed by the soft light from the windows behind her. She had changed in ways he hadn't expected. Where once there had been uncertainty, there was now a quiet strength. Where once there had been fear, there was now the flicker of trust. She had become more than just his mate. She had become his partner, someone he could rely on. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice carrying an almost hesitant quality. "We need to talk." Her words sent a flicker of concern through him. He motioned for her to come closer, his heart racing slightly at the thought of what she might say. She had never been one to hide her feelings, but there was a weight to her words now. She had something to say, something important. "Of course," Ethan said, his voice gentle. "What's on your mind?" Lily walked toward him slowly, her steps measured, as though carefully considering each word she would say. She stopped just a few feet away from him, her gaze dropping to the floor for a moment before lifting to meet his. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "About us, about this place, about what it means to be with you." Ethan felt his heart beat a little faster, but he didn't interrupt. He needed to hear her words. "I never imagined that I would be here," she continued. "I never imagined that I would find someone like you, someone who would want to protect me, who would want me to be part of something bigger than myself." Her words made his chest tighten, and he took a step forward, closing the distance between them. "You are part of something bigger than yourself, Lily," he said softly. "You are part of me, part of my world, and I will always protect you." She looked at him for a long moment, her silver eyes searching his face as if trying to gauge the sincerity in his words. Ethan held her gaze, willing her to see the truth in his eyes. "I don't know if I'm ready for all of this," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I don't know if I'm ready to be your queen, to live in this world, to carry the weight of what it means to be with you." Ethan reached for her hand, gently cupping it in his. "You don't have to be ready right now," he said softly. "We can take it one step at a time. Together. I won't rush you. I just want you to know that you're not alone in this." Lily's eyes softened, and she nodded slowly, a small smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "I want to believe that," she said, her voice full of vulnerability. I want to believe that I'm worthy of everything you're offering. Ethan stepped closer to her, his voice low but firm. You are more than worthy, Lily. You are everything I've ever wanted. And I will show you, every day, just how much you mean to me. The words seemed to hang in the air between them, a promise unspoken but understood. Lily's hand tightened around his, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to believe in something more than just survival. She believed in them. I trust you, she said quietly, her voice steady. And I want to try. Ethan's heart soared at her words. We'll take this journey together, one step at a time, he said, his voice filled with certainty. You'll never have to face anything alone again. Lily looked up at him, her gaze soft but filled with resolve. Then let's do it, she whispered. Ethan smiled, his heart filled with a warmth he hadn't known he needed. Together, they would face whatever came next. Together, they would build something strong, something lasting. And nothing, no one, would tear them apart. With their hands intertwined, they turned and walked side by side down the hall, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. For the first time, the future felt possible, and it was a future they would face together. Ethan and Lily stood at the balcony of the castle, gazing out over the snowy expanse that stretched to the horizon. The evening sky was painted with hues of purple and gold, and the quiet of the moment was almost surreal. The wind had died down, leaving only the soft crunch of snow beneath their feet. The world around them felt peaceful, but within, Ethan's thoughts were still in turmoil. He had made a promise to Lily, to protect her, and that promise weighed heavily on his shoulders. There was still so much they didn't know, so many unanswered questions about her past, about the threat that loomed over them, and the bond that was growing stronger every day. It's beautiful, isn't it? Lily's voice broke through his thoughts, soft and filled with wonder. Ethan turned to find her standing beside him, her eyes reflecting the colors of the sky. He smiled, nodding. It is, he agreed, his voice low. But it's nothing compared to the beauty I see in you. Lily's cheeks flushed at his words, and she looked away, her gaze returning to the landscape. It was moments like these that made Ethan realize just how much he had come to care for her. He had never expected to feel this way, to open his heart to someone as completely as he had with her. But now, he couldn't imagine life without her. Ethan, Lily said after a pause, her voice more serious. I've been thinking. He looked at her, sensing the shift in her tone. What's on your mind? I know you're doing everything you can to protect me, to keep me safe, she began, her voice steady but filled with uncertainty. But I can't shake the feeling that there's something more going on. Something bigger than just me. Ethan's heart clenched at the thought. What do you mean? He asked, his tone soft. Lily turned to face him, her silver eyes meeting his with an intensity he hadn't seen before. I feel like I've been running from something. Like my past is catching up with me, and I don't know what to do about it. Ethan stepped closer, his hand reaching out to gently take hers. You don't have to face it alone, Lily, he said, his voice firm. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. I've made that promise to you. She looked at him, her expression torn between hope and doubt. But what if it's too much? What if I'm not strong enough to face it? Ethan cupped her face in his hands, his eyes softening. You're stronger than you think. And I'll be by your side every step of the way. You don't have to carry this burden alone. Not anymore. Lily closed her eyes, taking a deep breath as she absorbed his words. When she opened her eyes again, there was a flicker of resolve in them. I want to believe that, she whispered. But I need to know the truth. I need to understand what happened, why I was left out there in the cold, why I was abandoned. Ethan's heart ached at the pain in her voice. He had known that her past was a source of deep hurt, but he hadn't realized how much it still haunted her. He gently squeezed her hand, a promise in his touch. We'll find the answers, Lily. And when we do, I'll be there to help you heal. You don't have to face this alone. She looked at him then, her expression softening. Thank you, Ethan, she said quietly. I'm not sure what I would do without you. Ethan smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You'll never have to find out, he said, his voice filled with certainty. I'm not going anywhere. As they stood together, the bond between them grew even stronger. There was still much to face, many challenges ahead.